Welcome to the channel and the follow-up to the last video, which of course was to identify the car underneath the cover to win a Hot Cars t-shirt. Want to congratulate Charlie, Des, and Kevin. They were all able to identify the car. The car is in fact a Chevrolet Monte Carlo, and as a matter of fact I'll uncover it so you can see what we're talking about. Now I got some other footage of the car when it got parked here. I'm going to get to that because unfortunately the transmission decided that it wasn't going to keep the fluid in it anymore, and it puked it out all over the concrete. But this truly is a 15-year restoration that has been sidebarred and just haven't been able to get it completed. So I'm going to tell you the story, and I'm going to make it as rapid as I possibly can. I actually had to make some notes because there's just so many components to it. But anyways, this is actually going to be where the story ends. What's in this box was sort of the final plan for the car now that we got all involved in the Monterey. So, not kidding, had to make a list. So here's how the story goes. In 2007, we bought this brown Monte Carlo. It was a pretty good price. We picked it up at an auto body shop. The paint on it was beautiful. It was brown with a tan interior and a 305 that ran pretty good, but it was a pretty nice car. So the intent was for that car to become my wife's car to drive either summer long or winter long, depended on the time. Later in that year, a few months later actually, one of the towing companies that we're friends with actually came in on the flatbed with an 85 Monte Carlo SS. The car ran like a top. Actually, I gotta say, it was the first time I really messed around with one of those high output 305s. It had 373 gears in it, and we literally tore the tires off this car having fun with it. But the problem with the car was it was pretty rotten. It needed floors. The frame wasn't in good shape. What we decided to do was take all the SS stuff out of the car and use it for this brown Monte Carlo that we had, and sort of do a Monte Carlo SS clone. So after we took all the SS parts off the car, back in those days, enduro races became pretty popular at the dirt tracks we were racing at. And you just basically took all the interior out and all the glass, and then you went out and raced a car right off the street. And we put all the regular Monte Carlo parts on it, the bumpers and everything, and the wheels, and we took it out to race it because, of course, truthfully, it was a Monte Carlo SS. It was a great car for racing, and I'll tell you, on lap 94, I was chasing down the leader who had a left rear flat, and if son of a gun, the pickup module and the distributor gave it up, and the car just died on the backstretch. So $40 part cost me a $1,000 win, unfortunately, but that's the way the story rolls. So the following week was basically the final race of the year for us in our division, and didn't really go as planned. Well, really didn't go as planned. So we literally took the track, and on the first lap, this happened to my car. And it was major, major damage. It twisted the front section of the frame. I mean, there was tons of damage to the car, but it required the car basically being cut in half. We were able to save the main cage. Body panels were just destroyed and everything, and the car needed a rebuild looking into the next season. My wife, by this point, had sort of figured out that often when I put her in a car, it was actually a parts car that I was sort of keeping on the side in case something went wrong with the race car. If we blew an engine, Most of the time she had a 305, and even though it wasn't really super competitive on the track, at least maintained our points, as well as back then we ran a perfect attendance, which got you a free pit pass for the following year. So these were things we strived to actually meet all the time. So my wife at this particular time was driving this 80 Le Mans. It was a pretty nice car. Actually, it was a beautiful paint job, I'm going to say that. And it had Corvette rallies on it. It had a 327 in it with a 200R transmission. And it would have went really good off the line, but the thing had 229 gears in it. So it was more of one of those getting on the highway cars. If you punched it, the thing took off like a bat out of hell. But anyways, so she comes home from work and I said, I need your car. She goes, what do you mean you need my car? I said, I need your car. We are going to take the body panels off it and half the frame, and the car is finished. I got you another car. So she got kind of used to this happening because I most definitely did this more than once. The following week, though, after I flipped the race car, there was an enduro race at another track. And I thought, what the heck? We'll take it out and go race it one more time. Well, it was absolute insanity because almost 140 cars started the race, and cars were starting in the pits. It was the craziest thing I'd ever been involved in because I started in the pits when the green flag flew, and we had to almost like merge our way onto the track. It was just crazy. But the day didn't go well. I started 106th and had made my way up to 15th place when what occurred, I'm going to insert it for you. And this became kind of the end of the Monte Carlo SS. It had, well, you can see from the pictures and the images, it was pretty destroyed. So the car barrel rolled 2.5 times after it was flipped. And the roof was exposed to traffic, and then the roof got hit. And I know one thing, I left that day knowing I would never get on a racetrack again unless there was a roll bar above my head, because it was way too close of a call. So we started to take this brown Monte Carlo apart, and it kind of turned out that the body shop guy may have left out a few details, like the fact that even though it looked beautiful, the paint and everything, as we started digging into it, we exposed a lot of Bondo, like a lot of Bondo, a ½ inch thick in spots. And most definitely it was a kick and lick or lick and spit or whatever you want to call it kind of body job. Needless to say, it was actually pretty bad. We wound up starting to do rockers. As a matter of fact, we welded in rockers on the car. We repaired the quarter panel that was all rotted out. And we're making good progress with the car, as a matter of fact. The body was off the frame, and this was just the cockpit area. And then a buddy of mine calls me up and says, listen, I just got this parts, Monty, and he says, I hate to chop it up for a race car because it's in great shape. So I said, oh, okay. I said, well, I'm pretty far into this car. He says, no, you need to come look at this thing. So sure enough, I go and look at it, and it was in really good condition. It was a blue Monte Carlo. It was nice. There was very little rust. So we had 5 stock car guys get together, and it was actually quite a day. It was a Sunday, and in 3 hours total, we had this entire Monte Carlo completely dismantled. Bare frame, bare panels, interior was completely out. Like, the car was dismantled in 3 hours. It really showed me that when you got 5 guys who know what they're doing, you can make amazing strides taking something apart. The only thing we did run into is by the time we loaded all the parts I needed on the trailer, we left the hood behind, and when I went back the following week, the hood was actually gone. So we lost the hood, but the car had 42 dents on the roof and 19 dents on the passenger quarter panel, as well as there was a big crease. And this actually is the body that it was. And this section was completely punched in. I'm not a body man. I dabble with it, and it probably took me 3 months to get that straight, as well as there was 19 dents down through here. And I mean, it looks pretty good now, but it's not like I was able to do that in a day. It was a lot of work. I started to collect parts for the car. As a matter of fact, a few different Monte Carlos went through my hands. Of course, we were picking them up for the race car. We would skin the panels off of them. We would pull out all the suspension components that we use for racing and then just scrap the car. And back in the day, like we paid an average of $100 or $200 for those cars. And even when we took the carcass to the scrapyard, we still managed to actually get like a couple $100 for what was left. So a lot of other cars passed through during the restoration. The frame from the Brown Monte was quite good, except for the back rails. So I cut those off and welded on new backs. And it was actually going pretty good for a couple of years. The frame went together, suspension went together, everything was getting cleaned and painted. And I started making strides on the new blue body. Of course, it was much less work other than the dents and the crease. It was starting to move along pretty good. It was looking like the car was actually going to get done maybe within a year or 2 year time frame. At that time also, I was learning how to airbrush a little bit. So I'd done a little bit of practice work in that, and then I did a guitar for a friend of ours, and that was sort of the, okay, I think I can do this. And that is what you're seeing down this quarter panel, because that was about 12 years ago, I think, that I did that. And of course, the plan back then was a little different than the plan is now. Now I just call that really ugly. And the plan was just to get rid of that and maybe still go with the two-tone paint. We had a couple of ideas. The wife likes pinks. So we were talking about putting a black with a pink stripe in it for her because it was to be her car. I finished the 2008 race season with only 15 races on the engine that was in the stock car. I sold the stock car and kept the engine, and it ran so well, this engine, that I actually put it aside, and it sat in the back corner with some oil in it. We kept bumping it over every month to make sure it didn't seize up, and it stayed well. Finally got to the point where it was like, okay, I need to get this car out of the way. It's been shuffled aside, but it needs to run, it needs to steer, and it needs brakes, obviously, to even be moved. While we were still racing, we went back for a season in 2010, 2011, and messed around. The poor car saw some parts robbed from it for the race car, because if you've been in racing, you know that it becomes priority one, and it doesn't matter what anything else is. It just gets shuffled aside or gets stolen from, and that definitely happened more than once throughout those couple of years. One of the problems that I was having getting it running was that the 85SS electrical system was a little bit different than the 84 Monte Carlo electrical system. And I was having a hard time matching up some of the plugs and the wires. I thought they would be pretty compatible, but of course, 85, they started to introduce the ECMs to the cars and General Motors, and of course, the 85SS actually had an ECM behind the glove box, which, had the car not been so wrecked and on the trailer in the driveway, I probably would have taken the time to take in all the wiring out of there to help make some of the systems mesh up better, because, of course, we were going to use the Monte Carlo SS dash and everything, because as bad as that car was, the interior was actually in very good condition. So I got to the point where I had a quick electrical system hooked up and everything was working. Fuel lines were all in new and made the connections and all that. And for a day of messing around, I didn't know why this engine that ran perfectly wouldn't start. But anyways, it took a little while, and I finally grabbed myself a quick 12-volt electric fuel pump and hooked it up in a jerry can, and sure enough, the engine fired. So the conclusion became that the one thing that 14 years of sitting did to the poor motor was it swiped the lobe off the camshaft that drives the fuel pump. So that's been actually updated to a Summit Racing pump with a regulator and all that in it. At the same time, with the new 600 Holley carburetor on it, and the motor runs good. I can't fire it up right now for you, but I did have a clip from when I backed it back into the spot. I'll throw that in there so you can hear. The car has dual exhaust Flowmasters with Flowmaster cats underneath it. The whole exhaust system is painted flat black DHT. That was sort of the plan going underneath it, because everything under the car is black except for the drivetrain. The drivetrain was painted a maroonish purple to match the interior at the time. So the car actually wound up here after the Monterey project started. And of course, the Monterey is 1 day a week that the boys come over on Wednesday, and we tackle as much work as we can get done in 1 day. The Monte Carlo got pushed out here, but it also had a couple of doors. The southern doors were in the garage, and they were in the way with all the Monterey parts collecting. And so the boys give me a hand, and we just whipped the doors on this car and threw the rest of the parts, like the spoiler and the lights and all that, just so that the whole car was combined out here. But as the channel started to grow, and of course we have a lot of videos about the Monterey, because that is obviously the main job we're involved in right now. But I asked them one day, I said, listen, should we come up with a plan for this car? Should we do something with it? And the thought was kind of, okay, we should just sell it off. Well, a 15-year project is hard to sell, because it's not like me to not finish a project. But this one has just been sidebarred so many times that I entertained the thought, and I know there's a buddy out there who is pretty interested in this car. Yeah, I know who you are. So we've been talking about it, and I said, well, let's maybe make one more video with the car. So the car has a dirt legal engine in it, a 350. The only thing that's really been changed on it is the carburetor. We had to run a 2-barrel 500 CFM carb with a spacer under it for rules in our division. Those have been removed, and of course the 600 CFM carburetors on top of it, which should put this engine somewhere between 365 375 horsepower. But of course the camshaft in it is designed for dirt racing, which kind of comes to life real heavily somewhere around 3200 RPM, and shines all the way up to about 58. So back to the beginning of the video. I showed you a box, and I said this is actually where it ends off. This is a diff locker or a mini spool. One of our thoughts was to take the car down to the drag strip and see what a dirt legal 350 will do in the quarter mile. We were curious. Some of it was about making new content for the channel as it's been growing. Tell us your thoughts. If you would like to see this car go down the strip, we might just have to make that happen. So I guess I'd like to know what your thoughts are. Do you walk away from a 15-year project, or do you hang in there and see it through, even if you're still just poking at it? Should we take this car out and take it to the drag races and find out what a legal dirt track motor will do? The motor should perform pretty decent. I don't know, might pull 12 seconds, maybe. Low 13s? I don't know. I'm not certain what it would actually pull. And the other thought is, do I just send the car down the road with my buddy? I know he's going to chime in and say yes, but by all means, if you want to comment about it, I'd love to hear your opinion. If you'd like to see this car finished, maybe that's what we need to do. If you'd like to see it go drag racing, maybe that's what we need to do. If you think we should just move it along and work on the Monterey and then get going on the Fairlane project, I'm okay with that too, if that's what everybody else would think is the plan. But I'm open to suggestions when it comes to this. I know what the boys think. The boys think it's time to move the car along and just worry about the other projects at hand. Anyways, thanks for watching. If you're interested in a Hot Cars shirt, just send us an email at hotcarsandcooltools@gmail.com. If you'd like an Ugly Merc shirt, we also have those, and our shirt prices are very reasonable. We're not trying to gouge anybody. We appreciate all the support that the channel has got, and hope to bring you some more stuff. Have a great day.